About 2 years ago on the channel, I tried my hand at a Pokemon Heart Gold Hardcore Nuzlocke using only normal type Pokemon, and unfortunately, finding myself with only 3 Pokemon at the end of the Elite Four, I resorted to cheating in order to beat the run. Now, despite this, it ended up being my 5th most viewed video on the channel, garnering over 3,000 views up to this point, which for most people would be a terribly performing video, but for a mediocre to bad channel such as myself, that's actually quite good. Regardless of that, this time we're going to be headed back to Generation 2, seeing if the Johto games will be any easier for me using normal-type Pokemon versus the Generation 4 remakes. After picking a useless Totodile starter for HMs, it's time to start catching our encounters. First up is going to be the classic bird, the normal and flying-type Pidgey, as one single Pokeball gets us the basic bird. Next up is the Generation 2 basic rodent, as we add a Sentret to the team. The better bird is up next as Spearow almost goes down to a critical hit scratch. Thankfully it's early enough in the run that I could have reset, but regardless, one ball gets us the second generic Kanto bird. And last but not least is the Johto MVP of the early game, that being the mono normal type Dunsparce found in Dark Cave. If you saw my Johto run in Pokemon Crystal, you know how absolutely busted Dunsparce is in the early game. And we're going to test that out here against the flying type trainer Falkner. Now as you can see, Pidgey's not doing much with stab tackles, and every time we get hit, our stab rage boosts in power. Both Pidgeotto and Pidgey have relatively weak attack stats, and a few rages from our resident snake get us an easy, painless first Johto gym badge, getting us a pretty clutch badge boost for attack early on, which will be really good for our physical attacking normal types. After picking up the egg from Violet City, we can get the original OG generic rodent, that being the normal type Rattata. Now on the Slowpoke Well, we're taking on the executive, who just has one single coughing in this game. But this fight was low-key a little bit difficult here. As you can see, Smog continues to poison our normal types over and over again, and not wanting to lose a Pokemon this early in the run, I keep having to switch around. Coughing goes 3 for 3 with poisons, but I like to stay in with Pidgey and finally take out the stupid poison ball with a couple gusts. Thankfully, Slowpoke Well is cleared without any casualties, and it'll be time for our squadron of normal types to take on the Bug-type trainer Bugsy. Now, thankfully for us, we do have 2 flying types on our side, and he has 2 absolutely useless Pokemon. Metapod has Tackle, and Kakuna has Poison Sting, so the strategy here is just to hope that they plug away with weak attacks, allowing Rage to get powered up enough to at least 2-shot Scyther. Now, Scyther with his base 500 base stat total at this point in the game is really difficult to deal with, but like I said, I hope you guys finally understand how absolutely busted Dunsparce is in the Pokemon Crystal early game. After having a little evolution session, picking up Furret and Pidgeotto, it's time to take on one of the harder fights in the game, that being the Azalea Town rival fight. Now he of course leads with Ghastly, which our normal types can't hit with stab damage, but thankfully Pidgeotto has Gust. Despite getting put to sleep, this Ghastly can't really hit us either, as I believe its only attacking move is Lick. Meaning it just spams Spite, but since Gust has a lot of PP, we can easily we just wake up and take it out with one last Gust. In comes Zubat, who isn't really all that useful, but it is pretty annoying with Supersonic and Bite. It can flinch with Bite and confuse with Supersonic, but thankfully we hang on with 28 HP and down the bat with one final quick attack. In comes Bayleaf, but we obviously have flying types on our side. We send in Spearow as Bayleaf sets up a Reflect, but there really isn't that much the grass type starter can do, and a couple pecks later, Spearow downs the Bayleaf, getting us a deathless win over the Azalea Town rival. Now, over in the forest, I like to teach Furret Cut, and I also pick up the HM for Headbutt, or TM for Headbutt, I mean, sorry about that. It is a field move, that's why I got confused, but obviously, Headbutt, 70 base power, chance to flinch, stab, and there's an infinite amount of them in the Goldenrod department store, so that is going to be an absolutely clutch move going forward. Speaking of clutch, we pick up Snubbull and hatch a Togepi, giving us more eligible encounters. Togepi goes to the box, but Snubble's going to be added to the party. And this evolution Grain Bull actually has some of the highest attack stat in the game, base 120, I believe. For the gym fight, we evolve Raticate and Fearow before taking on what many consider to be the hardest gym leader in the game, that being the fellow normal type specialist Whitney. Now, obviously Dunsparce here is still pretty good as Clefairy. It likes to go for Double Slap occasionally. Unfortunately, this time it gets 2 really good moves with Metronome, Psychic, and Extreme Speed, and we barely get our Rage boosted at all. I like to go for Glare on Miltank to hopefully stop any potential rollout combos before switching out, as we go into our newly acquired dog, the Snubbull, at least I think it's a dog. We have access to Charm, so I drop Miltank's attack by 2 stages while it's paralyzed and at -2 attack. There's not an awful lot this cow can do if it doesn't crit. Thankfully though, it just goes for a Stomp, which doesn't do a ton as Hyper Fang connects for about a quarter. We miss a Hyper Fang, and this Miltank refuses to get fully paralyzed, hitting yet another Stomp into our rat. After, as you can see here, I finally fixed Pigeon's name to be how Pigeon is actually spelled, and this stupid cow gets a critical hit. I go for Sand Attack to drop its accuracy, but of course it hits through Paralysis and -1 accuracy, downing our Pidgeotto and giving us our first death of the run. Furret can come in, and the stupid cow finally misses before doing pitiful damage with Stomp, and after connecting with a few cuts, we get this thing back into the yellow. Stomp leaves us at about half, and is now getting in a healing loop with a Milk Drink, but thankfully it finally gets fully paralyzed a few times, and we take out the stupid cow. Despite the death, we have our 3rd Johto gym badge. It was bound to happen eventually, and Pidgeotto's a terrible Pokemon, so I can't really complain. Now down a team member, it's time to take on the rival once again, this time in the Burn Tower in Ecruteak City, as he leads with his newly evolved Haunter. Haunter goes for Curse, but a single peck downs the stupid ghost, leading into Magnemite. We're forced to switch due to the Curse damage here, and I don't really have anything super effective as far as I know at this point in the run, so I just switch into Ferret on a Supersonic, who unfortunately gets confused. For 55% accuracy with an AI debuff, they sure hit this move a lot. Regardless of that fact, though, I go into our good friend Snubble, who has Charm and Bite to do at least neutral damage to the Magnemite, but since I get confused, I'd like to switch again. This time, after a lot of deliberation, I go back into Ferret on a Thundershock, who thankfully dodges the Paralysis and can try to go for some flinch strategies with Headbutt. Thankfully, we do flinch the Magnemite once, but Supersonic once again connects, as the rival just loves using this move and he hits it every single time. For some reason, I misclick and go for a Tail Whip, but one final Headbutt downs the Steel type, earning us the right to take on Zubat. Now, Zubat isn't really dangerous at all. One Headbutt flinches, one more finishes it off. And Bayleaf, who can be kind of annoying in the Azalea Town fight, almost actually takes out Rat with a single critical hit Razor Leaf. Thankfully, our Rodent hangs on with 2 HP, and Dunsparce can come in and clean out the fight with a Headbutt, but that got a lot closer than it needed to be. If I want this run to go better than the Heart Gold Soul Silver run went, I'm going to have to start playing better. Now, thankfully, our Snubble evolves into Gramble, giving us a monster base 120 attack stat, where we take on the Ghost Trainer Morty. Now, Morty, not particularly dangerous, as his stab attacks cannot connect into our normal types whatsoever, and he likes to go for damage with Shadow Ball, especially on his Gengar. Not that Shadow Ball Gengar is particularly dangerous, because its special attack is not being utilized by Shadow Ball in this generation, but none of that matters, because our resident Rodent, the normal type Rat, is easily absolutely annihilating Morty's Ghost types with super effective digs. Thankfully, since there's no Levitate in Generation 2, we can easily one-shot them with a super effective move, making use of their frail defenses, and getting an easy 4th Johto Gym Badge. Now, at this point in the game, the encounters really open up as we pick up 2 crucial encounters, that being Tauros and also its female counterpart Miltank, getting 2 key members to the squad before heading back to Ecruteak City, and easily plowing through the Kimono Girls, who are much easier in Generation 2 than the Generation 4 remakes. I feel like in every Nuzlocke I've done in Generation 4, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, I've lost a Pokemon to them because you can't heal in between them, but in this game they're an absolute joke as we sweep through them easily before heading to Cyanwood City and taking on the Fighting-type Gym Leader Chuck. Now, this battle I found to be difficult in my Heart Gold Soul Silver normal run, but Chuck is absolutely terrible in Generation 2. As you can see, Peck almost one-shots his Primeape, and a second one gets the job done. Our defense is lowered from Leer, so I switch into Snake, who gets put to sleep by Hypnosis, which has 45% accuracy when used by the AI in Generation 2. I try to gamble on a Dynamic Punch, which Snake actually does survive somehow, but since I don't have a safe switch, and Dunsparce's usefulness is really wearing off, I just try to waste as much Dynamic PP as I can. Thankfully, he misses 3 in a row, but I also miss a Glare. His 5th and final Dynamic Punch does connect, but that means that he's out of Fighting-type moves for the rest of the run. Thank you very much, Dunsparce. You are an absolutely invaluable key to this run. Poliwrath is going to waste time going for Mind Reader, which is completely useless as the AI debuff still stands despite that, and a couple strengths from Bull down the Poliwrath, getting us our 5th Johto Gym Badge. We did get a casualty, but like I said, Dunsparce's usefulness really falls off by after about the 3rd gym, and sacrificing him there gave us a guaranteed win, so thank you for your service, Snake. On the route near the Lake of Rage, we can pick up the normal and flying type Farfetch, which is by far the worst of the normal type birds, but I mean, hey, an encounter is an encounter, and it's always good to have them in the PC in case anything happens. At the Lake of Rage, we're forced to take on the shiny Gyarados here, and you are actually forced to fight this thing. You can't run from it. You either have to catch it or fight it. It can be annoying sometimes, but thankfully Dog 2-shots it with Headbutt, and we can head down to the boring Rocket plotline. I love this place so much. Generation 2 is absolutely amazing, guys, right? Level 22 Zubat from the Executive. That's so cool. Wow, it's a level 24 Raticate. Oh, we got the flinch. Let's go. Next up is Coughing. Headbutt, doesn't get the one-shot. Wow, we flinched. Wow, what a really awesome competitive battle. I'm so glad that happened. Now, in Heart Gold Soul Silver here, this is actually kind of an interesting double battle you do with Lance. But here in Gold Silver Crystal, Executive Ariana just has absolutely nothing for you. Level 23 Arbok, level 23 Gloom. It's like, come on, really? I get that you can do this technically before you even have 5 badges, but like, come on. I understand they wanted to go for non-linearity, but the Kanto games had non-linearity, but the level scaling went a lot better than this. You'd think that they would do things better the second time around than the first time around, but whatever. I'm not Game Freak. They've never done anything right. Another thing they didn't do right is they intended you to take on Price 7th, but his ace is 4 levels lower than the technical 6 gym leader Jasmine's ace. A critical hit Headbutt just one-shots his seal, and thankfully Aurora Beam doesn't get us an attack drop either of the times it hits, allowing us to 2-shot the Dugong, leading into Pyroswine. Now thankfully this thing has no ground moves to leverage its better attacking stab, but Blizzard still does hit pretty hard considering its base like 120 power in stab. At half health, I'm not safe to stay in as I switch to Bull on an Icy Wind, and after 2 Icy Winds connect, we sit at -2 speed, meaning Pyroswine likely outspeeds now. I don't really have a great switch into this thing, but I really don't want to sacrifice Bull as it's going to be absolutely imperative into the late game. You bring in Cow on a Mist Blizzard and can start plugging away with Stomps. Unfortunately, we don't get the flinch, but we still outspeed, and one more Stomp from our Pink Cow gets us our 6 Johto Gym Badge, relatively easy. Things got a little spooky there, but with a careful switching, we were able to get out of there deathless. Next up is Jasmine, which is actually like really annoying in this game. Thankfully though, we do have Dig on Raticate, which is 4 times super effective against the Magnemites. One shot the first one, in comes the second one, despite it being base 60 power, quad effective, easy one shot on the unevolved Magnet, leading into Steelix. Now this thing is actually one of the harder boss Pokemon in the game, being at level 35 and fully evolved, which is not something that really happens a whole lot in Johto. Furra unfortunately can't get a one-shot even with a critical hit Surf, but I don't really have a great switch in here, so I just plug away for damage, hoping to get the KO. Unfortunately, I do not, and an Iron Tail connects. But with a sliver of HP left on Steelix, I can just switch in Eradicate, and one more headbutt downs the Steel Snake, giving us our 3rd death, but more importantly, our 7th Johto Gym Badge. Things have gotten a little bit harder as of late, but this run has been considerably easier than the Heart Gold Soul Silver normal run. One thing I forgot is if I switch my game time to Tuesday, I can head back to the first round of the game and talk to this NPC here, picking up the Pink Bow, which is the Generation 2 equivalent of the Silk Scarf, giving us even more damage onto our stab normal type attacks. Now, one thing I forgot to mention earlier on in the run is every time you beat a gym leader, you actually get, I believe, a 12.5% type boost to move to the type of the gym leader you beat. So when we beat Whitney earlier on in the run, we get our same type attack bonus boost. We can use the Pink Bow to boost that even further, and we also get an additional 12.5% boost to all normal type moves. Meaning that even though Dig is super effective, as you can see, I catch on that Headbutt is actually doing considerably more damage. And since we outspeed, Headbutt actually also has the chance to flinch, meaning it's by far the better move. I go for Dig here on Weezing, hoping that it'll just explode while I'm underground, which will just give us a free hit into the next coughing. This is at low health here, it's almost guaranteed to explode. I switch into Cow, and thankfully it doesn't crit, as we hang on with 20 HP. The final 2 coughings won't really be much of a problem, so I can switch into Tauros and just take them out with a few strengths. But things can get pretty spooky in this fight if you get exploded on, especially by the Weezing. But just in the first couple generations, Explosion actually halves your defense before an attack, meaning it's effectively base 500 power. Thankfully though, we get out of there alive, and we can head to the Rocket Underground, taking on the rival. Second to last rival fight of the game. This one usually isn't all that difficult. As you can see, Headbutt just 2 shots his newly evolved Golbat. Magnemite is usually a problem, but quad effective Dig easily gets the job done. In comes Haunter, we can go for Dig, super effective, and also Haunter has like 3 defense. In comes Sneasel, Sneasel sucks before Generation 4. Headbutt doesn't get the KO, but Faint Attack does like 2 damage. And last but not least is his fully evolved Meganium. Headbutt doesn't quite do half as it goes for Reflect, but as you can see, Razor Leaf isn't doing a ton. We get the flinch, and one more Headbutt gets us a Deathless Eradicate sweep. Easy pickings here for us against the rival, as he becomes an absolute joke after Azalea Town. As you can see here, we're finally done with the stupid Rocket plotline. Just one last fight against Executive Archer, I believe his name is in the remake. Didn't even give these guys names, that's how uninspiring this section is in the game. Houndour goes down to a single Pink Bow boosted strength. Coughing doesn't quite, but just goes for a weak tackle as Horn Attack finishes the job. Last but not least is Houndoom. Strength almost gets the one-hit KO, Smog poisons, but it does not matter as we get an easy Tauros sweep and finally finish off the stupid, uninspiring, and boring Rocket plotline. After heading over to the Ice Path, the route before it actually had a patch of grass I didn't really know about, and we could actually pick up a 6 team member, that being the normal type Lickitung. And after spamming it with Calciums, we actually got to have a pretty decent special attack stat, meaning we can use the Elemental Punches and do pretty solid special damage, which was something that we were severely lacking. Now, I put the Pink Bow on Tauros and also got it returned as we're finally at max happiness. Unfortunately, we got paralyzed with the first Dragonair, meaning we're kind of on a clock at this point. Fortunately, we do break through, but we can't one-shot the Dragonair with return, meaning it gets us down to 26 HP with a Thunderbolt, leading into the 3rd Dragonair. Thankfully, Claire has no Gyarados in this game, as that would make this fight a heck of a lot harder. It's much easier in Generation 2. After Deliberation, I switch into Lizard on an Ice Beam, and we can go for a super effective Ice Punch. Ice Beam thankfully does not get the freeze, and after taking a second one on 57 HP, we can down the 3rd Dragon with one final Ice Punch. In comes the Water Dragon type Kingdra. We have nothing super effective against it, as its only weakness is Dragon, and obviously you can't even catch a Dragon at this point in the game. I switch in Dog on a Hyper Beam, since we're going to get 2 free attacks in. I'd like to go for Charm, neutering any potential future Hyper Beams it launches off. Now, unfortunately for us, it just goes for Surf, which is huge damage into Dog, leaving it on 9 HP, meaning I'm forced to switch. I bring in Rat here on a Surf, who takes over half, but there really isn't anything I can safely switch in on this thing. I bring in Cow, who takes a ton of damage from a Surf, hanging on with 1 HP from a critical hit, meaning I really can't get out of this with sacrificing something. This Kingdra is an absolute monster, and whether it's Gen 2 or Gen 4, I always have a ton of trouble with this thing. I really don't have a safe switch, and I'm going to have to sacrifice someone. I go for the flinch play with Cal, but unfortunately I do not getting it, giving us our 4th casualty of the run. This means I can switch in Sparrow for free. And unfortunately, Drill Peck isn't doing quite half. I just have to gamble. We hang on with a Surf with 45 HP. We heal a little bit with a Berry, but fortunately, one more Drill Peck gets the job done. And despite our 4th casualty, at least we have all 8 Johto Gym badges, earning us the right to take on the Elite Four and challenge the champion. On the route, headed to the Victory Road in Kanto, we pick up our 6th and final team member, that being the final normal and flying type Bird Doduo, who in my opinion is the best one out of the 3. The rival here in Victory Road is usually never a challenge. I'm not even fully healed here, and I don't really care. He leads with Sneasel, who, as I said, is terrible. A physical attacker with 2 special stabs, and just overall terrible stats. Fury Cutter does nothing, and a single critical hit headbutt off our base 120 special attack stat gets the job done. In comes Golbat, and I have no idea why I switched here. I could have easily just 2-shot it with headbutt, and I get confused on the switch. Fortunately, I break through with an Ice Punch, a Wing Attack connects, and we break out of confusion, 2-shotting the bat with 2 Ice-type moves, leading into Magneton. Now, Magneton here, I probably could have stayed in, but I didn't, and I go into Rat on a Thunder Shot, because this thing actually can't learn Thunderbolt in Gen 2. A Dig actually doesn't get the 1-shot. That's the first time this has happened in this run. As you can see, Raticate's power is really falling off. Thankfully, we survive with 36 HP and down it with a Headbutt, but yeah, as you can see, Raticate not doing so great at this point in the run. Haunter wastes time going for a Mean Look, and we just break through with a Bite, which is over half, and he takes himself out with Curse. Thankfully, since Haunter is done, we can switch out through the Mean Look, meaning Curse won't do any damage to us, as we bring in Bull on a future site, but thankfully Return downs the physically frail Psychic type, leaving just his starter, Meganium. Now, Meganium, really not that good at this point in the run. It just goes for Poison Powder, but since we did over half with the Return, I thought a second one would finish off. Thankfully, we didn't get KO'd, but that could have been a little bit spooky there. Fortunately for us, we hang on with 42 HP, down the Meganium with a Return, and finally head to the Indigo Plateau. Now, our final team for the Elite Four: Sparrow the Fearow, Bull the Tauros, Lizard the Lickitung, Rat the Raticate, and of course, our final 2 team members, that being Dog the Grambull and Emu the Dodrio. Here we go, our team of normal types versus the Kanto/Johto Elite Four. Without further ado, here's Elite Four member Will, the Psychic type user. Now, Psychic types tend to be pretty physically frail, and we have really good physical damage with obviously Return on our Tauros, Pink Bow boosted. We actually couldn't quite one-shot the first Xatu, which kind of sucks. But as long as we don't hit ourselves in confusion, Jinx's horrible defenses mean it goes down in 1 hit. Executor is actually fairly bulky from what I know, so I'm going to switch here into Emu to do some super effective damage. But Psychic does a ridiculous amount on the switch, and I know I can't one-shot this thing with a Drill Peck. Psychic also does huge damage into Sparrow, meaning we're actually in some trouble here. We have to get a safe switch, and I'm sure Lizard is probably our best bet. Psychic does looks to be a little bit less than half, and we hang on with 33 HP from a second one. But unfortunately here, one more will do us in, meaning we have to switch out. We do outspeed this thing probably with most of our Pokemon, and Dog is able to hang on and go for a Shadow Ball with only 3 HP remaining. Executor is down and comes in another bulky friend, that being the Water and Psychic type Slowbro. Now, Slowbro is also pretty physically bulky, meaning we're forced to switch into Bull the Tauros and go for some returns. Thankfully, though, it just starts going for Curse, and as long as it does this a few times, we should have just enough damage to get the job done, and we do, getting an unnecessary crit. The final Xatu comes in, we can just return it. It does hang on and go for Confuse Ray, but as long as we break through a few times, we should be good. Return connects, we go for a second one, we snap out of confusion, and we get a deathless fight over the Elite Four member Will. Now, next up is going to be the Poison-type trainer, that being Koga, promoted from his gym leader position in Generation 1. Here we are here, Koga leads off with Ariados, who's far from the most inspiring Pokemon here in the Elite Four, and we can go for a Return, which barely misses out on the 1-shot, but as long as we can connect on our second one, which we do, we down the Poison Bug type, leading into his second Poison Bug type, that being Venomoth. Now, Venomoth is considerably better than Ariados, but it doesn't even get a chance to use a move as we crit it with Return, leading into Fortress. I go for Earthquake just to get some neutral damage here, but we're not doing anything into the Steel type, who has pretty high defense. It just stalls with Protect, and after quite a few Earthquakes, we finally get the job done with 99 HP remaining, leading into the Mono Poison type Muck. Earthquake actually almost gets the 1-shot and just wastes time with Minimize. Thankfully, we connect, and it just leads his final Pokemon, Crobat. Now, obviously, Koga here loves his evasion moves, going for Double Team once again, but hey, we've hit through every single evasion move in this run, and we get an easy Tauros sweep. That's why evasion isn't reliable. If you hit through it still, it does absolutely nothing for you. It's completely luck-based strategy, and thankfully, the luck was on our side. Next up is Bruno, terrible in Generation 1, actually pretty decent in Generation 2. His Hitmontop loves to go for Dig, so I just switch into Emu to take no damage on it and just start going for Drill Pecks. Obviously, he does have 2 Onyxes, but here, Drill Peck does pretty good damage and 1-shots the lead Hitmontop in 1 hit. In comes Onyx, but we can switch into anything that has halfway decent special damage here, choosing to go into Lizard. Sandstorm does not get the special defense boost here in Generation 2, and one single Surf downs the Rock Snake. We actually took quite a bit of damage from Earthquake, surprisingly, even though Onyx has like a 3 base attack stat. And also in Generation 2, I believe Sandstorm does 1/8 of your HP, meaning it's actually a pretty dangerous weather condition. Thankfully though, it actually does also affect Bruno's fighting types here, so Hitmonlee's taking pretty good damage, and one single Drill Peck from Sparrow downs the Hitmonlee. In comes Hitmonchan, who was a little bit more defensive, but with the chip, Drill Peck probably is enough for the KO. Still, I decided to play it safe and switch into another normal flyer, that being Emu. Thankfully, Hitmonchan has like base 35 special attack, meaning Ice Punch does nothing, and one Drill Peck downs the punching Pokemon, leading into Machamp. Now, Machamp is fairly bulky, but it just misses the cross chop, and that means we can just go for a tri-attack even after the max potion. It does pretty good damage, and one more Drill Peck, meaning that we have defeated 3 Elite Four members without losing a single Pokemon. Things are looking good, but the 4th and final one remains, that being the Dark-type trainer Karen. Now, Karen can be really annoying, especially in solo runs, because her Umbreon likes to spam Sand Attack, but thankfully we have the gift of being able to switch. I go for Return on Raticate, which you can actually get infinite copies of if you just switch your game to Sunday over and over again, which is really clutch for normal types in this game. That's another reason why normal is probably the best type in Generation 2. We break through Confusion and down the Umbreon, leading into her Vileplume, which likes to go for Petal Dance, but thankfully we have Resist, and we have super effective damage with Drill Peck, meaning we can one-shot the Rafflesia Flower in one hit, leading into her Gengar. Now, Gengar is pretty physically frail, and it just takes itself out with Curse, meaning we take no damage. This is Generation 2. As in comes Murkrow. Now, Murkrow, not the most inspiring Pokemon in the world. We can go for either Thunder or Ice Punch. Thunder Punch does well over half. After taking a Fate attack, Lizard takes the KO with yet another Thunder Punch, leading to her final team member, that being the Dark and Fire dog, Houndoom. Now, I'm forced to switch here, so I go into Bull, who takes huge damage from a Flamethrower. None of our normal types really have great special defense, meaning I just hope someone takes less than half when I switch in. I switch in Dog, Houndoom goes for Flamethrower, and a critical hit one-shots our Gramble in one hit. I was so mad about that when that happened. I really enjoyed using Gramble, and its base 120 attack stat with Shadow Ball on return was doing huge damage. Thankfully, I can switch into Emu and do over half, but the bad luck continues as we get burned on the switch, meaning one more Drill Peck won't even get the KO. We destroyed her first 4 Pokemon, and Houndoom has completely done us in. Thankfully, does not crit. Sparrow hangs out with 27 HP, and a Drill Peck gets the job done. But oh my god, that was absolutely brutal to lose a team member like that, and we could have lost more if we didn't get lucky. Regardless, though, it's going to be a 5v6. We head into the final chamber and take on the quote-unquote dragon, aka Flying Master, that being Champion Lance. Lance always leads with this trusty Gyarados here, but in Generation 2 it has a terrible moveset and just always sets up Rain Dance. We knew we can two-shot it with Return. Now, my plan here is to do as much damage as I can to the pseudo-legendary Dragonites. This one unfortunately paralyzes us and hits a Thunder and a Hyper Beam back-to-back to down our early game Rodent. Thank you for your service, Raticate. Sparrow can come in here and finish out the job with a Stab Drill Peck, leading to the second Dragonite. This is the Blizzard one, which means if it hits Blizzard, we're probably going to go down, but Sparrow, like a champ, hangs on with 4 HP, dodges a Blizzard, and takes out the second Dragonite with the third and final Drill Peck. Now, unfortunately here, I don't have a safe switch, meaning I just go down to a Rock Slide, but Sparrow, absolutely clutch, gave us a fighting chance here in this fight. Lizard can go for a Surf, as its Aerodactyl went for Hyper Beam and has to recharge, and one more Ice Punch downs the prehistoric Rock and Flying type, leading into Charizard. After considering a switch here, I realized I don't really have a super safe switch, meaning I can just go for the super effective Surf, which is about a little bit over half. But unfortunately, Lizard goes down to one more Flamethrower. Thank you for your service, Lickitung. You are our only special attacker, and without you, a lot of those random fights would have been a lot more difficult. I go for Tri-Attack here on Charizard, which gets the KO, leading to the final Dragonite. I unfortunately don't manage to get a status on any of my uses of Tri-Attack, meaning Emu goes down, leaving one final Pokemon, that being the normal-type Bull, who has just enough damage with Return to down Lance's final Dragonite and make us the champion of Johto. Now, as you can see, there's still about, 5-10 minutes left in the video. So for the first time on this channel, we are going to be taking on the Kanto section of a Johto game. We have encounters still left over in the box, and also there's encounters we didn't catch in Johto, and there's encounters all over the Kanto region. Normal and Water are the 2 most abundant types in the game. We're going to make use of these vast amount of normal types to build another team for Kanto, take on the easy Kanto gym leaders, and do the actual 2 challenges of this game, that being the fights against trainers Blue and Red at the end of the game. Now, I'm not really going to waste your guys' time by showing you the fights against the Kanto gym leaders, as they're all completely useless. I'm just going to go around the Kanto and Johto regions, building up a better team. As you can see, I caught a Jigglypuff. We brought in Togetic and Farfetch from the box. We go to Dark Cave and pick up an Ursa Ring. There's all kinds of stuff we can do here, and as you can see, we have a completely new team. Tauros, Wigglytuff, Farfetch'd, Ursa Ring, Snorlax, and Persian. Not the best team in the world, but I mean, Tauros, Ursaring, and Snorlax can do all the work in the world, and of course we have, Persian, Farfetch'd, and Wigglytuff for, weird strats or potential sacrifices. After we level them up all to the level cap of 58, we can take on the 16th and final gym leader, that being the former champion of Kanto, Trainer Blue. Without further ado, here we go. He leads up with his trusty Pidgey, who fortunately sucks, and I try to go for a cheeky strategy here using Return and Swords Dance, but a critical hit wing attack just almost one-shots our Farfetch'd. Unfortunately here, we can't do a cheeky strategy for reviews. I switch into Bear. Now, Bear has pretty decent attacking stats and access to all 3 elemental punches, which, although it uses its worst special attack, is really good coverage. Pidgey Mirror moves Thunder Punch, but it has bad special attack. It doesn't really do much, meaning we can survive pretty handily, leading into Blue's Alakazam. Now, I go into Tired Bear, the Snorlax, who was an absolutely busted encounter here with Rest, Return, and of course later on Curse, which I didn't pick up for this fight. Return one-shots the Alakazam, leading into Rhydon. Now, this thing is kind of low-key annoying to deal with. I don't have any special attackers on this team. I do have Balloon and also Ursaring, who do have pretty decent special attacking stats compared to our other Pokemon, but I realized I actually forgot to teach the elemental punches to Balloon, which means the thing is completely useless in this fight. Rhydon sets up the Sandstorm and also goes for Earthquake, meaning we can't stay in with Balloon here, and I can go into Cat. I don't know why I went into Cat, as it has nothing that it can actually do here to Rhydon. It just comes in here and just takes an Earthquake and Sandstorm with 5 HP before I'm supposed to switch again. Thankfully, Rhydon just misses Fury Attack, and I can go for some super effective Earthquakes into the Rock Monster. A crit almost one-shots it. Fury Attack doesn't do an awful lot, and the Sandstorm expires, allowing one more Earthquake to get the job done. Then comes Gyarados, but much like Lance's Gyarados, it always just wastes time going for Rain Dance, meaning 2 returns get the job done over the bulky Fish Dragon, leading into Executor. Executor is mad annoying, but it just goes for Leech Seed, which is really annoying, actually, because after a Hyper Potion, we actually can't two-shot it because of Leech Seed recovery. It hangs on with a Sliver, literally just because of that recovery, and Blue goes for a second full Restore. Return is doing over half. We just don't have enough damage with Leech Seed, meaning we're forced to go into Tired Bear, which is by far our most healthy Pokemon remaining. I can go for Rest Snore strategies. One thing I didn't realize is Snore is actually base 40 power. For some reason I thought it was at least like 60, 70, but at base 40, even with Stab, it's doing absolutely nothing. Fortunately for us, Snorlax has a really busted special defense stat, meaning that Solar Beam, despite it being Stab and base 120 power, isn't actually doing that much damage, and we're safe to just go for Rest and Snore over and over again to finally take out the stupid Palm Tree, leading Blue with his final Pokemon, that being the Fire-type dog Arcanine. Now, Fire-type dogs have done enough damage to us in this run, as Karen's Umbreon nearly whipped us in the Elite Four, but thankfully here, Snorlax actually can fairly effectively wall Arcanine, as its special attack isn't as good as physical attack, meaning we can tank Flamethrowers for days and down the stupid dog with a few returns, getting us our 16th and final gym badge, and earning us the right to take on one of the hardest fights in Pokemon history, that being the battle against Red atop Mount Silver. Before that, we had to sell it on Steady, set our time tonight, and pick up the TM for Curse. If you're thinking about Gen 2, Curse and Return can absolutely annihilate Red if you can set up on the Espeon. And without further ado, let's see how that goes. Gold versus Red. Here atop Mount Silver, the Nuzlocke comes down to this. Red, of course, leads with his trusty level 81 Pikachu, and I accidentally misclick and go for Rest. Thankfully, Pikachu just misses 2 Thunders in a row, allowing us to one-shot the mouse with a single 102 base power return. Now, our Snorlax here has really good special defense, meaning it can kind of eat up Psychics low-key from Espeon here, especially with Leftovers recovery, which you can pick up from the Celadon Game Corner and the Trash, I believe. I go for a few more Curses, as Espeon brings us down pretty low with Psychic. Thankfully, we tank one with 21 HP, and we can rest up back to full. And now here, of course, Generation 2, we have Rest and Sleep Talk. The low-key busted thing about Sleep Talk is that it can actually pull Rest and heal you back up to full, which is actually kind of ridiculously overpowered. I go for Sleep Talk, which thankfully pulls Return, and we actually managed to almost one-shot his Snorlax. But unfortunately for us, he rests back up to full. We wake up from Sleep Talk, which means I can start going for Curse again to get our attack and defense even higher. And with Snorlax's busted special defense and +6 attack and defense, unless we get some really unlucky critical hits, this is going to be an unkillable monster. We rest back up to full, and I think since we have a 2-level advantage on Red Snorlax, we should bring a little bit more damage than he's doing to us, especially with Curse. And since we pull Return from Sleep Talk, we one-shot Red's normal type in one hit with a base 102 power Return. Now here against Venusaur, we actually get pretty unlucky as we can continuously pull Curse and Rest from Sleep Talk instead of Return. If we pulled Return, I believe we'd be able to one-shot the dinosaur as he keeps plugging away with Solar Beams. A critical hit does 2/3, but as you can see, our good special defense, even unboosted, we can take a good amount of damage here from Red's Venusaur using Solar Beam. I pull Rest here, which actually is low-key kind of clutch, as Solar Beams keep raining down on us in one turn thanks to the sunny day. The sun, I believe, did expire here, as I hope to go for a Wake Up. I unfortunately don't get it, but he just misses an attack. Solar Beam does connect. We finally wake up, and one Return polishes off the Grass Dinosaur, leaving Red with just his 2 final Kanto starters. Game Freak's favorite Pokemon comes out here, so I just go for Return. We take a Flamethrower with 20 HP, and of course a 102 power Return one-shots Charizard, leaving just the Water-type Blastoise. Now, to play it safe here, I like to just think about a switch as I go back and forth here before finally going into Bear, giving someone else some shine in this Red fight. We have pretty good damage with all our attacks. He just misses a Whirlpool, which is a terrible move. and 2 returns from Bear down the Blastoids, getting us the win over this hardcore Nuzlocke. If only you knew how much it meant to me to finally beat a Johto game with normal type Pokemon. I know that video was almost 2 years old. It's one of my most viewed videos on the channel with over 3,000 views, and they were just terrible play after terrible play after terrible play. It was only 3 bad Pokemon remaining after Karen. I just cheated and used healing items in the fight against Lance. Well, I guess technically I did defeat a quote-unquote Nuzlocke. It said hardcore Nuzlocke in the video, and you know, it kind of sucks to be cheating in videos like that. I know I admitted it was cheating in the video, and I said I didn't clear a hardcore Nuzlocke, but it's good to finally head into a Johto game and clear it fully with normal type Pokemon. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all the support, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. See you guys later.